Let me be very clear from the start. You were never born to fit in. You were born to stand out, to disrupt, to break molds, and to make people uncomfortable with your greatness. And if they've ever told you, you're too much, too loud, too driven, too intense, too ambitious, let me tell you something right now, go OD. That means you're getting under their skin. That means you're awake in a world that's fast asleep. You see, we live in a society that celebrates mediocrity and fears passion. They're okay with you being average. They're fine with you staying silent, small, and submissive, just as long as you don't disturb the status quo. But the moment you begin to own your voice, the moment you walk into a room like you belong there without apologizing, the moment you start shining too brightly, suddenly, you're too much. Let me tell you the truth that will blow your mind, you're not too much. You're just more than they're ready to handle. They don't get to define you. They don't get to decide what you're too much looks like, you do. And maybe your fire burns too hot for people who've only ever lived in the shadows. That's their limitation, not yours. So what if your dreams scare people? Dream bigger. So what if your energy makes them uncomfortable? Rise higher. So what if your confidence is mistaken for arrogance? Keep walking with your head up. The world needs people who are too much. People who speak when others stay silent. People who push boundaries instead of playing it safe. People who won't shrink to make others feel tall. You are not put on this earth to tiptoe around the insecurities of others. So the next time they call you too much, smile. Because what they're really saying is, you're powerful. You're bold. You're alive. Now here's your call to action. Own your fire. Don't dim your light. Stop asking for permission. Go out there and become everything they said you couldn't be, and more. Because when you finally embrace being too much, you'll realize that you were never too much. They were just never enough. When someone calls you too much, what they're really doing is revealing their own limitations. They're projecting their fear of boldness, their discomfort with confidence, and their inability to handle intensity. The truth is, being too much simply means that you're fully alive. You're not half present, half engaged, or half interested in this life. You are all in. You walk into a room and the energy shifts, not because you're trying to dominate, but because your spirit refuses to dim. Being fully alive means feeling things deeply, expressing yourself without apology, and showing up with everything you've got. It means you don't just dip your toe into the water. You dive in head first. You don't whisper when you've got something to say. You speak with clarity and power, because you know your voice matters. And that intensity? That's not a flaw. That's your essence. That's what sets you apart in a world that's been taught to stay quiet and small. Your passion might be too much for people who've been taught that survival means blending in. When you're fully alive, you challenge their conditioning. You remind them of the risks they didn't take, the dreams they gave up on, and the spark they allowed to die. That kind of reminder can make people uncomfortable. But discomfort is not your burden to carry. You were not born to soothe other people's insecurities. You were born to wake them up. The truth is, being too much is often just being more committed, more courageous, more honest, more open. You don't skate on the surface, you go deep. You don't tolerate mediocrity, you raise the bar. And when you bring that kind of energy to your work, your relationships, and your life, the world takes notice. Not everyone will celebrate you, but that's never the point. You didn't come here to please. You came here to live. Fully, loudly, without holding back. People who are alive like that tend to shake things up. They don't just follow the rules, they question them. They don't wait to be picked. They choose themselves. That energy? It's electric, it's rare. And for people who are only operating at half their potential, it can be overwhelming. But that doesn't mean you need to turn it down. If anything, it means you need to lean into it more. Your energy, your fire, your voice, these are not liabilities. They are gifts. And when people try to make you feel wrong for using them, it's because they haven't yet found the courage to use their own. Most people have been conditioned to survive, not thrive. They've been taught to avoid attention, not embrace it. So when someone like you comes along, living out loud and with intention, it disrupts their understanding of what's possible. And maybe you've felt it too. The way others shrink from your light, the subtle messages to tone it down, be quieter, more polite, less intense. Maybe you've started to believe that your emotions are too big, or your presence is too heavy. But those are the lies that keep powerful people small. That's the conditioning that silences voices and dulls brilliance. And you were not made to be dulled. Being alive means letting yourself feel deeply, speak boldly, and dream without apology. It means allowing yourself to take up space, to walk through the world like you belong in every room you enter. That's not arrogance. That's self-respect. That's ownership. That's what it means to know who you are and refuse to negotiate your value. You are not a problem to be fixed. You are a force to be reckoned with. And every time someone says you're too much, what they're really doing is confirming that you're exactly what this world needs more of. There will always be people who are uncomfortable with boldness, because boldness confronts what's hidden. It doesn't sneak in through the back door or ask for permission. It walks through the front with its head high and its voice steady. That kind of presence unsettles those who've learned to be agreeable at the cost of their authenticity. Your boldness doesn't need to ask for space. It creates it, and that alone challenges systems built to reward silence and obedience. From an early age, many are taught to soften their opinions, to play nice, to smile even when something hurts. But boldness refuses to follow those rules. Boldness says what others only think. It names the truth in rooms where everyone else is pretending. It demands more, not just from others, but from itself. And because of that, boldness is often misunderstood. People label it as arrogance, aggression, or defiance, when in reality, it's clarity. It's conviction. It's the refusal to be edited. There will be people who try to tone you down. They'll ask you to be more flexible, more patient, more agreeable. What they really mean is be less powerful. They want you to make yourself smaller so they can feel bigger. And for a moment, it might even seem easier to comply, to nod, to blend, to retreat. But each time you do that, a piece of you goes quiet. Each time you trade your voice for approval, you leave yourself behind. Boldness isn't about being loud or dominating. It's about standing firmly in what you know to be true. It's about having the courage to show up without shrinking, even when you're shaking inside. It's being able to say, "This is who I am, and I'm not here to perform for your comfort." That kind of honesty, raw and unfiltered, is rare. And because it's rare, it's often feared. But that's no reason to dilute it. When you're bold, you won't be everyone's favorite. You won't always be invited. You might even be pushed out of rooms that can't handle your intensity. But those aren't your rooms. Those are cages. And bold people don't survive in cages, they break them. Your truth doesn't need translation. It doesn't need to be softened, sweetened, or served in pieces. It deserves to be spoken whole. Sometimes boldness is mistaken for rudeness simply because it refuses to lie. It says no when a yes would be easier. It walks away when staying would be safer. It questions things that others have blindly accepted. And while some will call that difficult, the bold call it integrity. You don't owe anyone your silence in exchange for their comfort. The moment you start negotiating your boldness, you start erasing your edge. People will offer you comfort in exchange for your compliance. Don't take the deal. Because the price is always your power. They'll say things like, "Don't rock the boat," or "Be careful what you say," but what they're really saying is, "Don't challenge me." Boldness doesn't just challenge others, it challenges norms. It questions patterns. It awakens the parts of the world that have gone numb. And numbness hates to be stirred. Your boldness might make people uncomfortable, but that discomfort is a signal, not a stop sign. It's a sign that you're saying something real, something that's been left unsaid for too long. And if people flinch in the face of your honesty, let them. That reaction isn't yours to manage. You weren't born to tiptoe around fragile egos. You were born to stand your ground in a world that constantly tries to move the line. Boldness means choosing clarity over approval. It means choosing the truth over being liked. It means staying true to yourself even when the stakes are high and the silence is heavy. There will be people who ask you to compromise. They'll frame it as wisdom, maturity, or diplomacy. But if that maturity costs you your authenticity, it's just another form of submission wrapped in polite language. Boldness refuses to sign that contract. You don't need to water yourself down to be accepted. You don't need to rewrite your story to make it easier to hear. Boldness is your inheritance, your identity, your compass. And the moment you start to view it as negotiable, you invite others to write the terms of your worth. Boldness isn't something to apologize for, it's something to protect. They will tell you to be careful, to watch your tone, to soften your words so they land more gently. They will disguise their discomfort as concern, wrapping it in suggestions that seem polite but are meant to disarm you. But let's be honest, what they really want is for you to silence yourself, to shrink, to become more palatable. And you must understand, your boldness is not a problem to be fixed. It is a truth to be honored. When you speak up with clarity, they might flinch. When you walk into a room and don't wait for approval, they may whisper. But none of that is your responsibility. You are not responsible for making others comfortable with the strength of your presence. You are not here to dim the fire you've built within just so it won't cast shadows on the insecurities of others. Boldness is not cruelty, it's courage. And courage doesn't ask for permission. You may have learned early on to read the room, to adjust your volume, to wear your ambition carefully so it didn't intimidate anyone. You may have been praised for being respectful, humble, or well-behaved, all terms used to condition bold spirits into silence. But if your truth is wrapped in politeness that strangles your voice, what good is that respect? Boldness refuses to be edited into something less threatening. It doesn't ask, "Is this okay?" It says, "This is me." There will be moments when being bold feels lonely. Not everyone will meet you with the same fire. Not everyone will clap when you speak with conviction. Some will withdraw. Some will criticize. Some will call you too much because you refuse to be less. That sting you feel isn't rejection. It's proof that you're standing where most people never dare to. And the cost of boldness, it's real. But the cost of abandoning it is even greater. Your power lies in the words you won't take back, in the boundaries you draw without guilt, in the decisions you make that are rooted in your truth, not someone else's expectations. That kind of boldness will disturb the ones who prefer people to stay predictable. You'll stop being convenient, and that's when the tests come. But don't mistake that friction as a sign you're doing it wrong. Often, it's the very opposite. The pushback means you're rising. Negotiating your boldness is a slow form of betrayal, one compromise at a time. You start becoming a version of yourself that fits better into other people's narratives, but no longer fits into your own. You'll find yourself editing your opinions, your dreams, your voice, just to avoid confrontation. And at first, it might feel peaceful. But over time that peace turns into resentment. Because deep down, you'll know you gave away something vital. People will applaud you for being agreeable. They'll praise your humility when it's really your self-abandonment. But boldness doesn't thrive in places where approval is currency. It thrives in integrity. In knowing that even if you're not everyone's favorite, at least you are your own. That's where freedom lies, in the choice to be fully yourself, without waiting for a permission slip. Sometimes boldness is quiet. It's not always loud or dramatic. It's the refusal to stay when something violates your values. It's the decision to speak when silence would be safer. It's the strength to hold your ground when everything in the room is pushing you to fold. Don't let anyone confuse politeness with power. Boldness isn't about being rude. It's about being real. You don't owe the world a softer version of yourself to be worthy of space. You were not designed to take the edges off your brilliance, just because someone else finds it sharp. Let them adjust. Let them choose how they respond to your truth, but never let their discomfort dictate your expression. You were not made to walk on eggshells. You were made to walk in purpose. There's a reason your voice shakes when you're bold. It's because you're saying something that matters. It's because your body remembers a time when boldness was punished, silenced, or ignored. But say it anyway, show up anyway, stay firm anyway. Because the moment you decide your boldness is not up for negotiation, you stop waiting for a seat at the table, and start building your own. They weren't ready for your fire. They weren't ready for your confidence, your hunger, your truth. And the reason they reacted the way they did, the discomfort, the silence, the judgment, wasn't because there was something wrong with you. It was because they couldn't handle someone who didn't ask for permission to exist. They've been trained to follow a certain script, to walk in neat lines. And when you showed up tearing through the rules, it exposed how tightly they'd bound themselves to conformity. You didn't come into this world to whisper. You came to make noise, to shake foundations, to shift the atmosphere just by being who you are. But that kind of presence makes people nervous. Especially those who've spent their lives dimming their own light. They weren't ready for your questions. They weren't ready for your refusal to settle. They weren't ready for the way you stood up and refused to fold. And that's not something you have to apologize for. You'll find that some people will try to shrink you. Not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of losing control. Your growth will make them uncomfortable because it reminds them of how long they've stayed still. Your strength confronts their passivity. Your boldness challenges their silence. It's not personal, it's psychological. And yet, it feels personal when you're on the receiving end of their judgment, their resistance, or their attempts to dismiss your power. There may have been moments when you questioned yourself because of their reactions. When you started second guessing your choices, toning down your energy, dimming your joy just to make others feel okay. You may have wondered, am I doing too much? Or am I too intense? But that self-doubt didn't start with you. It was planted by people who were never ready to receive all of you. That doubt isn't your truth. It's theirs. There are people who say they want realness until they actually get it. They say they value strength until they meet someone who doesn't bend for their approval. They say they want depth, but only if it's easy to digest. You're not meant to be bite-sized. You're not here to make yourself small enough to be safe. You were built to stretch the limits, your own and everyone else's. And if that kind of expansion scares people, it simply means they weren't prepared for someone like you. You'll outgrow people, rooms, conversations, and entire systems. That's what growth does. It creates separation. And it's not a sign that something's wrong. It's a sign that you're evolving beyond what they could envision for you. Some will call it selfish. Some will call it arrogant. But what it really is, what it has always been, is liberation. You stopped asking others to approve your freedom. You just chose it. You were never too loud. You were never too bold. You were never too much. You were simply ahead of where they were willing to go. You dared to want more, to speak truth when silence was expected, to chase dreams that didn't come with a guaranteed outcome. That takes guts. That takes fire. That takes vision. And not everyone is ready for that kind of intensity. Not because you're wrong, but because they're still living in fear. People only meet you at the level of their own awareness. And if their awareness is shaped by scarcity, control, or fear of judgment, then your expansiveness will always seem excessive to them. But that doesn't make you excessive. It makes you awake. You're living with your eyes open, and that alone threatens those still hiding in the dark. But your life is not a flashlight for someone else's comfort zone. It's a torch meant to light your own path. You've probably been told to wait, to tone it down, to give people time to catch up. But here's the thing, your life isn't a waiting room. You are not required to delay your becoming for the sake of those who refuse to grow. Their unreadiness is not a reason to slow down. It's simply evidence that you're moving at a different pace. A pace aligned with your purpose, your vision, your truth. The people who are meant for you will not only be ready, they'll be energized by your fire. They won't be intimidated by your ambition, they'll be inspired by it. They won't flinch when you speak boldly, they'll rise to meet you there. Until then, keep rising anyway. Keep showing up in your fullness, your honesty, your brilliance. Because whether or not they're ready, you are.